we are galactic beings and we are divine beings, or eternal beings, right? And so we are not manifesting that right now. And so in the alchemical process, and this is going to naturally happen no matter what, it's going to already, like life, the universe is driving this evolutionary process. Alchemy is about understanding that formula so that we can work with it, so that we can harness those natural processes, and then by our own creative efforts, we can speed it up. So when we understand them, then we can work in participation and speed it up. And that's what it means to be an alchemist.
So we're going to be dragged there anyway, might as well participate in a proper way.
Yeah, and we can get there faster.
Right,
we can get there faster and hopefully smoother, in a smoother way. Because if you just leave it up to nature to do, you're gonna wind up kind of having to repeat a lot. Right. And so the first step, and a lot of people can really probably relate to this in their lives, like the first step that we go through when it's time for transformation is what we call calcination. It's like you get burned. Something in your life just gets shaken to the core, and you feel like, you just, like, everything just got uprooted, like a big earthquake in your life, or your ego gets burned, right? And this is the calcination. This is the burning.
What about burn out?
It can be burnout. It can be that you just crash, right? And so that's the point where it's like, it's a wake-up call. And it's saying, you got to change some things. You got to look at some things here because it's not working how it's going right now. And you have to progress. And if you don't progress and you stagnate, well, the universe is going to keep trying to send you events and experiences that are going to catalyze that progression. And so we go through that burning, and then the next stage that usually comes up after the burn is and feeling like the ego just got flared and so forth, is the emotion starts to rise up. So the next stage is what we call disillusion. And so there's things from the subconscious that have been buried, the impurities and the things that need to get cleaned out start to rise up to the surface of our awareness of, but it's a very emotional experience at first. You know when you're in emotion, and it's like you just can't think quite clearly, right? So you're not necessarily going to get clarity during this stage, but we do feel the disillusionment, right? So it is a disillusion, and things just kind of start to dissolve in terms of what we thought our life was. And it was like, this is how it was, and now it's all dissolving. And we realize, I can't rely on that anymore. And so with the emotional stage, or that disillusion stage, we need to purify, and we need to release some of that stuff that was buried in the subconscious that was driving the pattern, right? Because we can't really, we're not going to act in our world and if it's not in our subconscious pattern. It's just, that's the filter. So we have to clean up that filter. And then once we kind of move through that disillusion phase, we get the emotion out, usually. And then as we release that emotional charge and some of the stuff starts to stir up, then we can move into the next stage, what's called separation. And separation is really just a process of patience and clarification, letting the mind get more clear now. Okay, well, what's what? What do we want to keep? What do we need to let go of? Where are the impurities? We start separating out the pieces, asking what's what, and okay, what parts here are essential, but there's impurities in there and we need to just purify it. What do I just completely got to get rid of? And then we're trying to really bring that purification of those essential components into the picture.
Discernment, truth, discerning truth, your truth.
Yeah, discernment and deeper questioning, deeper introspection, I would say, in terms of, well, what really is true for me? I thought this was true, but maybe it's not true. And what do I really want to do? What really would, bring me joy or help me have a better life, right? And, we've seen that even in the separation of alchemy and science, right? And religion. I mean, those things separated out.
Right.
But we need to, at some point, bring them back together. Now, as science separated out from the spiritual, it was able to really master all the technology and, this certain way of doing things. And that has, advanced us in many ways, but it's gone to the point now where it's out of balance, right? It's so linear, logical, rational material, and there's no spiritual guidance. That needs that wisdom of the spiritual side to come back in to guide how are we going to use these technologies. And so we need to bring these pieces back together again, but in their core essence, right? Not in their dogma, but in their core essence. And so that fourth stage is the bringing back together. So as we've purified and as we've clarified everything, now we're going to bring the pieces, those essential pieces, back together, and that's what we call conjunction. And for us personally, it's where, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, this is my new direction, and we start to feel more at ease and more centered in ourselves again, and we start to, have that sense of confidence, but it's also a connection to the deeper self. We start really feeling connected more to the higher self, or more aligned. And so, and this is where a lot of people though get stuck, is they feel comfortable again in this new conjunction stage, and it's really beautiful, but they go, okay, well, I've done all this work and things are better now.
I have a sense of myself now.
I'm comfortable, I'm getting comfortable again, things are going good again, and then they stop the work. They stop that introspection, they stop doing the clearing and the more subtle, the more subtle impurities that need to be purified out, and they just get comfortable. And when they get comfortable, what happens is they slide back and they have to go through the first 4 steps again. They can't really progress forward until they, really are pushing at some higher level. It's like we need that spiritual fire to come in, that secret fire to come in and keep driving the alchemical process. And if they're not connecting and continuing to bring that spiritual fire in, then it just sort of gets stuck.
Right.
And then the alchemy experiment kind of fails, and they got to start over again. So to move forward, we need to we go into the next stage called fermentation. And this is really relevant to where we're at right now, that the fermentation is a maturing process. It's like how they take grapes and then ferment it into wine. Right. So it's a maturing process, and in that it's slow, it's sort of a slow burning process, and it's a gentle heat that, kind of just gradually purifies away those more subtle impurities, that anything that needs to rot or die that isn't of the most core essential part has to go.
And you just said, and that's where we are now. Now you're speaking culturally. Are you speaking more globally of the human civilization at large? What do you mean that's where we are now?
Yeah, when I look at where the world is, because we have this big process of evolution happening as a human race, when I look at where the world is right now, there's cycles within cycles, so I can't say this is exactly everything, but we are in a phase where fermentation is very relevant, it feels. The fermentation stage is like a dark night of the soul, and you're having to face the corruption, you're having to face the inner demons, you're having to face, what's not working. You have to see that shadow side, it can't hide anymore. And there's this struggle between the light and the dark of the self. And as a collective, like, that is happening. The shadow doesn't hide anymore. It's like in our faces.
Right, every day.
Just
turn your cell phone on and look at headlines.
More than ever, and yet I think also because of, since the turn of the new millennium, things have really been, we've been in a new cycle, and yet there's also the bigger evolutionary cycle of humanity, so that's that cycle within the cycle. But since the turn of the new millennium, things have really been speeding up. And so we have, the internet, and that is creating a lot more connection and a lot more access to information, and a lot more fire, and a lot more, you can't hide anymore because this is going to be on, all over the internet within 24 hours or less. And so that is speeding things up as well. And so collectively, it's like everything in our world has changed. I mean, you just look back to 20 years ago, and it's like it's a completely different world, and technology keeps speeding up. And just within 5 years from today, the futurists are all saying our world's going to be completely different just in 5 years from today. So that's how fast and rapidly we're transforming. But in the fermentation, it's like whatever corruption is driving that, it's like we can't get to those final stages, so it has to go. And yet it can be an uncomfortable process, because as we're fighting, some people are fighting to hold on to the old structure, the old system. And then there's other people who are coming in saying, no, let's go for the new paradigm. And that struggle that's happening there makes this fermentation stage really uncomfortable. It's like there's pain in the process.
But it seems like it's also distilling down to the individual level. As it goes, as the masses go through this, so does the individual, more than I've ever seen.
Yeah, For sure. And we're all one, right?
Right.
So we're all part of that collective. And so whatever's happening at the global level, we are experiencing individually because, and the beauty of that is that if we can shift it individually, we're contributing to the global shift.
Yes.
And that 100th monkey effect or critical mass, that, you know, when enough people have individually made that shift and we've chosen the higher vibration and we've done the hard work that it takes to purify and to refine and to raise up to those higher levels, then we're contributing to the mass being able to shift in a more spontaneous way.
Absolutely.
Because not everybody's going to do this work.
Right.
But there are those who are willing to and who are ready to,
Right.
and they're coming forward right now.
And we're not done yet. That was only the 5th step.
That was only the 5th stage. Yeah,
so far, oh my God. Yeah.
It's the long dark night of the soul,
Yeah.
so it can take some time to get through that
Right.
stage, because it's like everything that doesn't serve that highest potential has to die. It has to go.
Yes.
And that's, you know, it really takes a lot of effort to root it out, because sometimes, I mean, some of it's really blaring in your face, and other parts of those corruption can actually be really subtle. Sometimes it's things that we think are good, like at a personal level. Sometimes there's things we think about ourselves. Oh, this is a good aspect of me. This is a good part of my personality, and, you know, it's my strength. But we have an attachment to it.
Right.
And in that attachment, when we identify, we're limiting ourselves. And so with that fermentation and that death process, we have to let go of all of it. We have to let
Yes.
go of any limitation that holds us in this humanness.